Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hazio, Doug Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan, Ryan Rashog live from the Cup Final coming up. Chris Johnston from the Cup Final. We got Steve Phillips on the Jays' crazy weekend. What happens with Manoah moving forward? Who could claim Cavan Biggio? Did the Jays make the right move there? A number of things to get into. Also, the Dodgers, Teoscar Hernandez. You see him absolutely destroying Yankees pitching all weekend.
Yeah.
He had a grand slam. I think he's up to 16 or 17 home runs on the season.
Kind of a weird one to let him go.
Yeah,
It'd be nice to have him.
Traded him for Swanson, who's not even with the team right now. And maybe you could use that power right-handed bat. By all accounts, over the summer or over the winter, he was willing to come back. They just needed to pay him or give him some term, and Atkins said no dice.
I got a question for you, Hayes.
Yes.
Why is, Manoah's out for the season? I've found it goofy, and my brother brought it to my attention because it drives him crazy. He was hanging around the team when he was supposed to be playing in Buffalo.
I know.
He was out there on the field in the dugout, and I'm like, what are you doing? Don't you need surgery? Go have the surgery and do your rehab. I don't get it.
I don't know. I thought the same
It's
thing.
like he gets this special treatment where it's like he's got to be around the team. It's like
it's not going to happen anymore, guy. Once he gets his surgery and he's gone for, 18 months?
That's the thing. If he has Tommy John, it's this year and next year.
And maybe that's the reason, guys. Maybe it's like this guy's going to be by himself in a dark place where it's like, let him be with the team. And I'm fine with that. I just found it weird. Even between starts in Buffalo.
Yeah, that was
he was
more
in
weird.
the dugout.
That was more strange, where it was like an understanding, you're still in the 40-man, you're still a part of our future here, and we want you to feel comfortable, as if you're not down there for a reason, even though he was technically rehabbing. He was also rehabbing his own abilities. But I understand. I was thinking the same thing. Like, the Kikuchi stuff was hilarious, and who was right in the middle of it laughing?
I was like, who the hell is that? What are you doing there? I thought you were going under the knife.
No, he's. I mean, I don't know when the surgery is going to happen. And again, it hasn't officially been classified as Tommy John. It's a UCL, whatever that's going to mean. But it could turn into Tommy John. He's done for this year. I think he's probably done for next. And I guess it probably is an understanding, like, again, we had that conversation last year. It's callous, it's dark, but it could be a reality that he just may not pitch again.
No.
That'll be basically 3 seasons where he's just not a part of the program, whether he pitched his way out of it like last year, was injured this year, will be injured next year rehabbing. Who knows what he's going to be?
And that's a scary thought when you banked on your whole life doing this one thing, and then the cards could come crumbling down. Mm-hmm. That's a dangerous thought at his age, man.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's all they've known. You're right. At this age, when somebody is forced into, now again, we're putting the cart before the horse, but let's say he's forced into retirement or something like that. Like, you have to start a whole new life. Because what are you going to do from age 25 to 100 if you want to live to 100? Like, it's a grind, because that's all they've known. And try to remember the picture that we have on a Canadian kid from Calgary. He's a Flames fan. He's been injured. Young guy.
Now I'm blanking on him. He's with the Braves.
Is he with the Braves, Atlanta. He's
Soroka, Mike Soroka.
Yeah, he's been a guy who was nicked up.
Tore his Achilles multiple times.
I know, and it just if you're not playing with the team, how do they sign you to an extension? How do you what's your contract status? All that Manoah's going to lapse.
Yeah,
correct?
Manoah's not going to get anything. I mean, sadly for him, there's not going to be any marketing ability, no endorsement deals. No one's going to sign him to a contract. The Jays, obviously, he's still got, options left, and they've got him under team control. And, the surgery, when he has it, that probably will be the last time we see him for quite some time. So he's probably like, screw it, man. I'll take the trip out to Cali and I'll hang out with the boys. I'll be in Milwaukee tonight. But at some point, that's going to come to an end. It's tough. Like it is
weird.
When you consider where we were a couple of years ago, this is how quickly sports can change. Like, Cavan Biggio designated for assignment, and Alek Manoah probably won't pitch again for the Jays. And a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was like, these are the building blocks. It's Guerrero, Bichette, Biggio, Manoah. Like, that's where they're going.
They're just some of those things in sports, Brian, where it's like back 2 years ago, we did a show and somebody said, I bet you in 2 years this would go down, you'd say you're absolutely nuts.
Right. seems like it couldn't happen. Like an injury would not have surprised people. Tommy
Right.
John, that gets thrown around like candy in Major League Baseball, but it's the uncertainty because of the way he was pitching, the
Right.
interactions with the organization. And Biggio, it was just simply a business transaction. You're not good enough anymore. We're moving on you. And that's, the reality of where the Jays are at and where those two guys are going to be. And we'll see what their careers look like from here on out. I'm not going to predict 5-10 years from now where Kevin Biggio and Alek Manoah are. Game 2 of the Cup final tonight. Looks like some lineup changes coming for Edmonton, and they had a lot of positives the other night, but ultimately they're completely irrelevant because you lost the game. There's no moral victories in a Cup final, and I think the expectation is Florida probably revs it up tonight as well. Let's head down there now. Here's our TSN Edmonton and Oilers reporter, Ryan Rashog. What are we thinking for tonight? Ryan, how are we feeling about what happened the other night if you're an Oilers fan, and how much of that quality play can you really apply to expectation tonight in terms of trying to get a win?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think there's two parts to it. First of all, I don't think the Oilers played poorly. I think the Oilers, feel they played a pretty reasonable game. They carried a bulk of the play, and other than beating Bobrovsky, did a lot of things well. The other side of the coin is there are those who will say that's one of the worst games Florida's played in these playoffs, and that the Oilers missed a major opportunity there with a team that didn't start great in a Cup final, and they ended up getting goalied. So, honestly, I think it's a little bit of both. I think Florida's going to be better. I think it was a missed opportunity, but I don't know. Maybe they've seen Bobrovsky's best game too. Like, is Bob going to be able to do that again? I'm not sure. So, I don't know, man. Oiler fans always stressed out. I don't know. That's one thing I can guarantee you that they are feeling is stressed out.
Well, Ryan, you talk about, Edmonton playing well, and I thought Skinner was solid. There wasn't too many negatives from that Oiler lineup, but one that we've been talking about here in the previous hour, Cody Ceci comes out, Desharnais comes in. I believe this is Ceci's first scratch as an Oiler. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm going to go more with Knobloch and some of his moves. Is this just a coach, again, that's not shy to make bold moves regardless of the stage?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's shown along the way here that he's not afraid to shake up the norm. He's not afraid to pull his starting goalie in favor of the backup. He's not afraid to, pull a Stanley Cup winner and now 5-time finalist from his lineup. He's not afraid to move guys around the lineup. Like, he's shown a pretty good touch. And most of what he has done has worked. I will say I didn't love some of the moves that he made for Game 1 of this series. I think maybe he might have overreacted a little bit to what happened in Game 6 against Dallas. I think, guys, that was a one-off. That was one of the best teams in the league trying to keep their season alive, and the Oilers just went into this shell and managed to get through it. But if you think back to Games 4 and 5 of that Dallas series, the Oilers gave up next to nothing. And they did that with Brett Kulak and Darnell Nurse together, Kulak playing on the right side. They were really good in those games. And he made some changes to start this series that I wouldn't call them missteps, but just kind of, and so we'll see. We'll see how these ones work here tonight. Might be a change up front too. But enough change here to look for different results. I think the other big one, guys, is potential new look second line, which is Leon Draisaitl with Adam Henrique in there and Dylan Holloway. So I think we could see that, and he continues to try and sort of shake something loose on that Draisaitl line.
Leon Draisaitl said, he's had some great comments, Reese. I don't know what you think, but during the playoffs, I think he spoke on behalf of himself, the team, fantastically. He said if we don't win tonight, it's not the end of the world, but do they have kind of the understanding that if they don't get this one, they're in big-time trouble?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I don't know what the odds are, but I can guarantee you they're not great. So I'm sure there's a stat that has been tweeted somewhere that explains. I think everybody knows. You go down 2-0 in a Stanley Cup final, your odds become infinitely worse. With that said, I think Draisaitl I think he's being smart there. He's not, if they make too big a deal of what a must-win game this is and then they don't win it, those comments come back and bite them when they're trying to talk about having belief if they are down 2-0 in the series. So, yeah, Draisaitl, he's been good. He's been, he's spoken well. He's been calm. you really get the feeling from these guys that the ups and downs that they've experienced in recent years, the disappointments, all of those lessons learned are kind of culminating, and it's creating a headspace for them right now that I think is much more manageable for them than maybe it was in past years. I sense a really calm, chill group. I think we see that in some of their media availabilities. I think we see that in their play. They've learned some lessons here, guys, and I think they're really applying those right now. And yeah, we'll see tonight. I'd be surprised if the Oilers didn't play an excellent game tonight.
Yeah, I think they're going to win tonight. I expect the same. But, you know, the change-up of that second line is intriguing because, you know, they've got depth. Edmonton does. Their power play has obviously historically been great. But the other night, no one could break through, including their depth. But it didn't take long, or it didn't seem to take long for Knobloch to say, I got to load up here. And it was, you know, Hyman, McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, Ekholm. It feels like a five-man unit, really. And they played a ton, and they were very, very dominant when they were on the ice in terms of puck possession and opportunity. Yet, you know, when Knobloch came in, it's been an age-old question. We've been talking to you, Ryan, about this for years. Like, when do you go with McDavid and Draisaitl together? Is it a sign of desperation? What, you know, how do you see tonight playing out if they find themselves down early? Do you see him reverting back to that, just saying, I got to load up and drive it into the ground, or will he stay committed at some point, realizing, you know, if McDavid gets shut down or that line gets shut down, like that's where it's got to open up for Draisaitl, where he's got to take advantage maybe of a secondary opponent. How do you see, you know, those decisions playing out possibly depending on the scoreline tonight?
So we're going to see them play together out of penalty kills. That's naturally when he puts them together. But to your point, if the Oilers are struggling to generate offense again, that tends to be the break glass in case of emergency option. He went to it last game. I don't think it worked. Like, if you look at the number of chances that the Oilers had late in that game, the Florida Panthers found their game and locked it down. The problem with putting those two guys together is that the Florida Panthers have Sasha Barkov and Gustav Forsling. So when you play them separately, the Panthers kind of need to decide who's going where. When you play them together, you can have Barkov and Forsling out against both of those guys, and you get your two most dominant two-way guys, shutdown guys out there against theirs. So it might not be a great mix to play those guys together against this two-headed defensive monster, right? One at center and one on the blue line. I wouldn't be surprised if he showed a little bit more patience and commitment to them being on separate lines. And if maybe he didn't tweak some things with Draisaitl's line to try and find him a bit of a different look or a bit of a different matchup. He's going to have to change something up because I don't think just throwing those two together is necessarily the answer against this team, and I think they found that out last game.
Ryan, who needs to play better from the Edmonton Oilers? We were talking in the 4 o'clock hour. I brought up the name of Evander Kane. Obviously, he's not 100%, but you know, we see Sam Bennett, how effective he is at playing a tough role, a physical role, but its speed and skill sets up that second goal. You know, Evander Kane, I coming into the playoffs, I felt he was going to be an X factor, and he had to be because he's a unicorn as a player. He's big, he's tough, he can skate, he can fight, but he can score and do all of that. How much of his injury or how much of him potentially, because he's not practicing and really skating, is he in game shape, all of that type of stuff? Is it time to, you know, and I think that's what they're trying to do is maybe get him farther down in the lineup where you don't have to rely on him as much because he's a guy to me that I think they need more out of. Is there other guys or is Kane the guy that I think Edmonton needs to try and get going?
Yeah, everything you said about Kane is fair. I do think there's an injury there. It's pretty obvious, and I think he has diminished a pretty reasonable amount. So I don't want to put a percentage on it. But yes, in the big picture, for the Oilers to win this series, Evander Kane's going to need to be a part of it in a bigger way than he was in Game 1 for sure. The name I'm going to say, though, is Darnell Nurse. And I think I'll pay this compliment to him. He has shown everybody how good he can be when he plays a little bit angry, when he plays with a little bit of snarl and a little bit of jam. He showed in that Dallas series after he was awoken, whether it was frustration at us, frustration at the online world, whatever it was, Darnell got angry and played his best game of the playoffs. And I would suggest that was not the case in Game 1. He has more ability to affect the game physically with his athleticism and his, the way he can play. more so than anybody else on this team outside of Evander Kane, and it's probably they're probably tied for the way they can affect the game physically, and he needs to check into this series in that way. So I talked to him today about it. He said it took me a little bit to get engaged physically, and I think I need to start that way tonight. So I would point squarely at Darnell Nurse and say if he can elevate the way he did last series, that would be a huge plus in the Oilers column.
Reese, you touched on the goaltender Skinner, and
Yep.
There's been different views on what Bobrovsky can and cannot do moving forward. I don't see there any reason why he wouldn't just pick up where he left off and just be outrageous again tonight. Do you think
Sure.
Skinner has an understanding where it's like the margins are super slim now? Like he can't have that throwaway game. I mean, nobody really thinks about stuff like that when you're an athlete in a series like this, but he's got to know that like it's go time. You can't let in stinkers and average goals because it's too hard to score against that guy.
Yeah. Well, and he talked a little bit about watching him at the other end doing his thing, and that's got to be, so he doesn't have a ton of shots on him. A couple of the first ones he's faced have gone in. And not really either necessarily his fault, but I think Stuart Skinner has a keen awareness that he is going to have to keep it to, under 3 goals. If this team is going to be able to consistently win games in this series. So I think he's pretty realistic about it. He was fine in that last game. Like he was. Some people didn't love the first goal, but I thought he was okay. I thought he did his job the rest of the way. I don't think he was an issue for them coming out of that game. But
I don't either, Ryan. I don't either. I just
he knows. No. He knows. Oh, like he looks at what that other guy's doing and goes, okay, well, I certainly can't let the bad one in, and I'm probably going to have to get a couple. I'm probably going to have to steal a couple too, because that guy sure as heck is.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that's probably a reality the way Bob's playing. And Noodles, you made a great point earlier that Florida will play better in front of Bob to the point where he doesn't have to stand on his head like that.
Yeah.
Like that's more than likely coming. Where we've talked a lot about Edmonton here, but if you're on Florida's side of things, I thought Tkachuk was pretty quiet. A number of their players, depth-wise, relatively quiet. And that would be scary if you're Edmonton as well, is that Florida's looking at their best players and saying, you're capable of more. And if they bring that tonight, that can cancel a lot of things out. And that would be scary if you're Edmonton, the fact that you may play the same way you played the other night, you still lost. If Florida plays exponentially better and Bob is in the zone, it's not an impossibility. The Oilers obviously can still break through, but that's going to be incredibly challenging.
The thing I would say to that is that, okay, so how much of it was what the Oilers did against Florida and how much of it was Florida didn't play well, right? The easy answer is it was a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess what I would say to you guys is that, if you were taking more of the optimistic view from the Oilers standpoint, you take that Game 6 and you throw that out. Because, again, you say that's one of the best teams in the league, Dallas, fighting for their lives. It was nuts. The Oilers did what they had to do. You could say that in 3 of their last 4 games, the Oilers have had excellent defensive performances against 2 of the best teams in the league in Dallas and Florida. Game 4, Game 5, and Game 1. They didn't give up a ton in Game 1, right? They kept the shots against way, way down. Same thing in Game 4. Same thing in Game 5. So the Oilers are consistently playing in a way where top teams in the league are having trouble generating much against them. So was it that the Panthers were that bad, or are the Oilers able to play a style? Have they found a style of play that's able to limit their opposition, some pretty darn good opposition? As 3 of the last 4 would indicate, maybe it's more about them.
Well, I think there's something to that because you're right. Dallas was a hell of a team, too. They had a lot of balance and a lot of high-end talent. And
it kind of looked like they weren't playing great, didn't it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Until Game 6, I guess, where Skinner kind of stood on his head. But you're right, Game 4 and 5, like Edmonton dismantled them. It was eerily similar to what we saw in Game 1. Game 4 and Game 5, the way I saw it, Ryan, and you're up close and personal, very, very similar, only Edmonton broke through and got through Ottinger where they couldn't do that the other night.
Yes, I agree. So we'll see. We'll see tonight, man. Either Florida's going to, plant a flag and go, that Game 1, that wasn't even close, and it'll be this eye-opening thing like, holy smokes, and Skinner will have to pull a Bob-like performance, or maybe the Oilers will carry the bulk of the play again, and it comes down to whether they can beat Bob or not.
Yep, it's going to be a fun one tonight. Enjoy it, Ryan. We'll do it again soon. Thank you, buddy.
All right, great to chat with you guys. Take care.
You got it, Ryan Rashog of TSN Edmonton Oilers reporter, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Yeah, I mean, listen, the mentality of the series and the approach to it changes greatly tonight. If the Oilers play the same way, kind of dominate the shots and chances and win 4-1 tonight, you fly back to Edmonton, that building is going to be absolutely explosive for Game 3. Even if they're down 0-2, it's going to be going nuts. But if it's 1-1, the roof's going to pop. And furthermore, in Edmonton, they're going to be saying, we should be up 2-0. You know, like if it's the same script that Edmonton gets them tonight, the Oilers are going to be coming home with their chests puffed.
Yes.
Like ready to rock.
Could be so drastic, the feeling
Huge.
going home. The crowd's going to be, you just mentioned it, they're going to be jacked no matter what. But 1-1 where you should have had 2 in your mind, that is a whole different vibe than 2. Everyone knows the 2-Cobb vibe. You're like, all right, we're going to put on a show here. They probably get the split. They dummy us back at home, and it's over. But it's just – there's an opportunity to go home with some real mojo, and just you're totally correct. Blow the top off that building in Edmonton.
What'd you guys make of the atmosphere down there? Like it sounded like it was rocking the buildings. Yeah. I saw people pointing out that there was a couple empty seats.
That was early in the.
Is that what it was? That was
weird. I didn't see that.
That's what I saw. I know, like the Rodriguez goal, there were some empty seats. And that was 2.5 in, but I don't know if there was a whistle before that. And
so people coming back from the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly.
I was probably a Maple Leaf fan that doesn't get to his seat until 4 minutes left in the period. Look at that! There's nobody in that seat.
No, it's a Saturday night. People are out boozing. They're probably having a great time. It's Cup final. Whatever. I didn't see empty seats while the game was 10 minutes into the period.
No, it looked like a good crowd. And,
good crowd,
into it. And for me, I don't know. I played on that ice. That ice isn't great. It's 1,000 degrees out there, and they're doing their best. But
it's a muddy track. It favors the Panthers, man.
It's a sandbox. That's what it is. It's gritty. Like, you got to dig in, and every puck bobbles a little bit. Like, you just got to find a way, but both teams are on it, right? Like, I thought the crowd was good. I thought the atmosphere looked really good.
They brought the cup out before the game.
I thought that was. What do you make of that?
I've never seen that before.
It's kind of neat. It's like, hey, there you're going. You're trying for that thing. If anything, would that get your adrenaline going? Like, you're staring at it, going, that's what we're going for, right there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can't put myself in that position. I would like to think they're aware of what the cup looks like.
It was just different because, like in sporting events, sometimes the Ryder Cup, both captains take a picture with the Ryder Cup and their team. It's not like it's anything like that's really crazy. But in the sport of hockey, I've never seen that thing out there before.
Generally, the tradition is it's not in the building until it can be won.
Right.
And you can't win it in game one.
No.
I don't know if that was a TV partnership thing. I'm not sure what happened.
At the end of the day, it's kind of cool. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, we're always saying do different stuff, make it look a little bit different, feel a little bit different. I'm not critiquing that. It had a bit of a cool vibe. It was different.
No,
I mean, I guess, exactly. Like, I'm not playing for it. You know what I mean? I don't – the traditional stuff doesn't apply to me. I can't speak to the players who I don't know if it threw them off or what.
The tweet started yesterday. You're not supposed to see the cup until
see the cup. Like,
everyone just hates everything, man. It's just
well, again, historically, it's only in the like how many times have we said, "Oh, the cup will be in the building on Tuesday night," because it's not quote unquote supposed to be there until it's actually an elimination game. But at the same time, like I always say, you don't have to run this through Congress. Like, it's your league, it's your rules, it's your. You can do whatever you want.
Maybe they don't trust Philip Pritchard down there in Florida.
Right.
There's lots of distractions there.
Yeah, the cup's got to go through customs. They're like, it may not make it to Edmonton. We better make sure we show it now so everyone knows it's actually around.
Yeah.
But this game is such a temperature game. In terms of what we just said for the Oilers, where there's a fork in the road. They win tonight, even if they get dominated and Skinner's unreal, it's still such a confidence boost. It's 1-1. You went down there for the split. You got it. That's attainable tonight. You loved your game in game one, even though you lost. You can improve on that. You steal home ice. All those kind of cliches that do apply will come out tonight. If they lose tonight, it's going to be...
It's not moral victory stuff.
It's not moral victories, but someone's going to bring up, all right, well, what's on the line here for McDavid and Draisaitl? What do they do? Draisaitl needs a contract in 3 weeks. If they lose, what do they do?
That's not coming up in the Stanley Cup Finals.
No?
Man.
Okay.
Unless you bring it up.
Well, I'm not a reporter on the beat, like covering the team or anything.
Dude, we've done that on a snowy Tuesday in February where we're like, what's going to happen here?
But it is the reality of what's at stake. We just talked about Biggio and Manoah. Like, you never know in sports, right? Like, you talk about generational players and how they always won. There's one guy that didn't, and it was Lindros. Lindros was generational. We knew who he was when he was 12. He got to the Cup final. He got swept. And at that point, I think we all thought he'll get to more and he'll win. Like, it's going to happen. They ran into injuries. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't want that to happen, obviously. But McDavid's in his 9th year. He's not a kid. Like, you got to take advantage, man.
My point is, Hayes, this is not going to come up in the Stanley Cup Finals.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't necessarily.
Yeah.
But
anybody brings that up, I walk out of the presser. I'm just going to be like,
oh, no one's going to ask them that. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying post game. I'm not talking about, hey,
don't kid yourself.
Maybe they will.
1 hour after they lose, if they lose.
Oh, that's coming.
That's coming.
Absolutely. If they lose if they get swept or lose in triple overtime in Game 7, Draisaitl stepping up and someone saying, "Are you signing in 2 weeks?"
Yeah. Are you guys gonna run this back? Is the question.
Yes, exactly. But in terms of the big picture and how tough it is, 32 teams. You're here. You gotta get one, man. And that's the same thing Kachuk would say, Barkov would say, all the great players on Florida's side. They're like, you got to take it. You don't want to be a team that loses 2 years in a row in a Cup final, because who knows when you can get back. Guys say it all the time. You get there early, you get there, you figure you'll be back, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. And McDavid is the best player in the world. He has been for a long time. He's a generational talent. He's chasing. I don't think he can reach GOAT status personally, but can he become a Mount Rushmore guy in the NHL? Yeah, I think that's attainable. Yeah, but he's got to win cups to do that. So
listen, he's got an opportunity, but you're right. Like, I don't know if that comes up, but it's 5 minutes after the cup, regardless.
Yes,
you know how it is. I mean, 5 minutes after the cup, there's other organizations that think they're cup contenders for next year.
Absolutely,
that's what it is. Like,
immediately,
it just. What it is now you're resetting for next season, going, okay, next year. But I don't know if it happens during the Stanley Cup unless all hell breaks loose in a bad way. Like, if Edmonton, if just bows out and nothing, then you're like, okay, do they run this back? You're going to have tweaks, all of that type of stuff. But that's just fodder. That's what people want to know is can you do this? But that group's got an opportunity. I don't know if they'll do it. Like, we'll see. I mean, I thought they played well in Game 1, but there's no moral victories.
Missed opportunity.
That's it.
That's how you can spin it both ways. That's the way I would look at it. That you had Florida, that you outperformed them, you came out flying. Florida didn't look great, and they still beat you. And that's a missed opportunity.
I don't know if missed opportunity is appropriate when a goalie plays that good.
Yeah, but you got to beat the goalie. I mean, that's the nature of the sport. I hear what you're saying, but I get what you're saying. But what are you going to do if you get swept and Bobstown's great? You just sit there and tip your cap? Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't disagree with your assessment that Bob, he was unbelievable. It's
like going up against Rocket Clemens when he's just dialed in and if you were the skip and the guy walks back to the dugout and he struck you out twice and you're like, missed opportunity there, chum. You'd be like,
yeah.
I guess you're right, but if the other team had 3 hits and beat you 1-0, you're like, man. Like, it's one thing if it was, man, they had 14 hits, they beat us 7-0, the guy wasn't hittable, we weren't stopping them. But yeah, I mean, Bob was the story. He was great.
Well, you got to find an answer.
McDavid, you just stand up and say, guys, we just do that again. We're going to win the game.
Yeah.
End of story. And ultimately,
you got a
problem. You got a problem on your hands. But there shouldn't be a whole lot. They've made some roster changes. You get that many little semi breakaways and opportunities like that. you probably come out on top if they duplicate that. Not a whole lot needs
With
to
their
change.
best players getting them too, right?
And you ask the trainer to find a appropriately sized Band-Aid.
That would help.
You don't skate around with a giant square on your chin.
That's 3 inches
On your
away
beard.
from your skin.
Throw a cage on it would have been more appropriate.
I don't know what was going on. That was actually, like, guaranteed there's a Twitter account called McDavid's Band-Aid. You know what it
McDavid's
is.
Band-Aid. Yeah. There needs to be a Twitter account called McDavid's Band-Aid. Absolutely.
There is.
Yeah.
Just comments, too. You know,
Right.
What was it? Is that remember that? Was it Chiarelli's? Did Chiarelli have a
there used to
Twitter
be
account?
a parody Chiarelli account. That was my favorite
God.
account on Twitter. It was
Yeah,
so
I got
good.
you onto it. It was so funny.
It was
my God.
the best. And they tried to carry it over with Holland. It just didn't land.
Yeah.
You know, like Chiarelli just had – it was so good. It was such a good parody account. I love a parody account. They're so good online.
I love it.
All right, U.S. Open this week. Jays in Milwaukee tonight. Game 2 of the Cup Final. We'll get into all of it. Busy weekend as well. There's a lot to still look back on. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Steve Phillips in about an hour. Chris Johnston coming up as well from the Cup Final. Get into the Cup Final, among other things, with CJ. You know, tons of rumors out there. 30 teams aren't playing. They're in their off season. Fans, if your team didn't make the playoffs, you want the Cup Final probably over. Really?
Yeah, it's been 2 months.
Yeah, just get over with. Get to the if you got a high pick in the draft and you got money to play with. I wonder if people in Utah are jacked. Are you jacked if you're in Utah and you have no experience? You haven't seen a game yet. You just now have a team.
You're not jacked right now. It's not even, isn't it? Unless you're somehow affiliated with the team. September, you're we have an NHL team playing here this year.
Right.
But until then,
Probably
I don't know
not.
how jacked you are.
I think if you're an Arizona Coyote fan and you're going to continue to cheer on, the new Utah team.
How's that going to happen, Noodles? They couldn't put 3,500 people in the.
No, but what I'm
ASU
saying, if I'm an
break.
Arizona fan and I want to see how Clayton Keller does in his career, and you're happy for him, and listen, you're sad that you lost the team, but you care about the team. I think there should be some people that should be excited if, like Bill Armstrong, they've got a lot of cap space, and they've got a new owner that's going to spend right to the cap. They might be able to make some noise here in the offseason to really improve that team. That's my point.
Possibly. I would think if my team left, I would just hate that team immediately. I would never follow that team. If I'm being honest, I would just despise them and want
So
nothing
Oakland, you
but
were just
awful
talking about
things.
Oakland.
If I was an A's fan and they went to Vegas, I'd want them to go 0-6.
I'd be a Giants fan
162.
forever.
Yeah, I'd probably flip, although that would be tough because if you're in the Bay Area, you probably hate the Giants.
But you got to hate something more. I would hate the team that left, and I'd be like, you know what, Giants, I'm on board.
Yeah,
I'm on board.
You're right. That might be the ultimate. Not that Oakland would care, especially if they're in Vegas. But you want to see how much I despise you? I'm going to go with the team I hated the most before you left. Now I hate you even more to the point where I'm going to flip and be a fan of the Giants. You see the report, speaking of Utah, I believe it was Utah linked to the Combine, teams asking players for their Uber rating and their Snapchat rating.
It's insane, man. It's too
Is
far.
that like a Babcock type of thing or what?
I don't think so. I mean, you're not. I'm sure the player can say, "I'm not getting into it," and you move on. I don't think it's as intrusive. It's not. I mean, you're not taking their phone and looking it up yourself. I don't know what that says. What is if someone's got a bad Uber rating?
Well, that means
But
that
he could
they're a
rip off-
jackass.
After the
of a
Mike Babcock
Maybe,
situation,
or-
how stupid could you be to even contemplate doing that?
Yeah.
I
How
think what-
stupid are you?
I
And I
think what
do
you
get
do-
it. You got to protect yourself, Jamie. Where you
Yeah.
don't want to have a kid at 2 years in where you're like, how did we not know that this kid was a problem? But this is just stupid. Spend some time, do whatever. But to go there, what are you doing?
I think they're
guys are
nowadays.
morons.
If I'm very interested in a player, I'm having a social media expert, a company that would dig into his social media, and because nowadays, we've had them. I work with a couple teams, and you have a social media expert come in, and they'll be able to say there's 50 kids at a rookie camp in a room. You can ask right away who's on social media, and I guarantee you 47
Every single
of them.
one of them. In
40.
some
There's usually
capacity.
like 3 guys that aren't on social media. Within a half an hour, these people, when you're doing your chat, the experts will come back and say, we flagged about 3 people. Do you want to make an example of it? You can put the hand up and say, who's, Joe Smith, put your hand up. You, just like you did, you Kurt Rambised it. You did this, you did that, because it's right there. And so I would want to do my due diligence. I don't know about the Uber rating and Snapchat and all that. That's weird. But I would ask if somebody's on social media and how active you are. Keep in mind, it's not only the player now. Is the parents a problem? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a brother who's a lunatic? Do you have an uncle who does things that is active on social media? We've seen that before, where it's maybe the player's a good player, but the brother's a problem on Twitter or on Instagram or something like that. Patrick Mahomes has a brother who's a problem, but that's a little different situation.
But that's the whole point. Ultimately, it's still meaningless because if you feel like that kid can rip home 50 for you, you're taking him. Kara's Uber ratings is 0.
Yeah.
This is
what the hell goes into a bad Uber rating?
Well, that's exactly. It's in the eye of the beholder. You don't tip enough, or you canceled something too late. Why would you drop someone on your board because an 18-year-old's got a questionable Uber rating? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It's weird.
That's so stupid. And I have a personal gripe because I don't think I have a great Uber rating, and I deserve a better one. I've been screwed over in the past.
Probably not. You got a bad attitude. You don't talk to people.
I know
rude.
why. Because
No.
you put it. You have the thing that says, "Do not talk to me when I'm in the car."
No, absolutely not.
I know you do
I
that.
would not but there's a perfect example. If I choose to do, I'm paying for the service. I pay and I tip. If I don't want to talk, you're going to give me a bad rating? That's what I'm saying. This is how stupid society is. Oh, bad rating. You don't know the context of a bad rating. Here I am fighting for a kid that may or may not have a bad rating. I don't know. And more often than not, a kid that's 18 isn't taking Ubers anyway. If he is, his parents are paying for it. They're not paying for it. It could be on his parents' account. You get a good rating? Good for you.
4.82. Is that good?
I think that's okay. I think that's pretty good. My understanding is no one's in the 3s. Right? If you're in the 3s, you should be in prison.
Then you're a problem.
You're a real menace to society. But if you're in the low 4s, which I believe I hover
you're
around,
a low 4. That's right.
I've told you I've told you what's happened to me multiple times. I've been in the middle of nowhere trying to get picked up, and no one picks me up. And then I try to get other people, and I feel like there's this community that's man, he's trying to get 5 people at the same time. Yeah. Really grease this guy, give him a bad rating. I'm I just want someone to come grab me, or a late cancel or whatever. That's happened before, a late cancel. And I'm I don't think you're coming anyway. I've been waiting here for 40 minutes. How's it a late cancel? Anyway, I'm ranting about my Uber rating.
I just love those
totally
bastards
irrelevant.
when they cancel on you and there's nothing happens. But
exactly.
If you got to cancel $11. Give me the what?
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is I guess I could imagine taking time to rate someone else. Imagine being that Uber, I'm going to give that a 4.72 because I thought he turned left when I thought, imagine how stupid. I couldn't live with myself if I was rating Uber drivers.
But there's
I really couldn't.
There's people that take time after a meal at a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Sebastian Maniscalco has a joke about it where he's who's rating the asparagus? The asparagus sucks. He said there's people that go home and write a rating for that restaurant's
South Park does
review.
an unbelievable episode on it where Cartman becomes too powerful because he's a Yelp reviewer that's ruining the reputation of all these different places. So they got to bend over backwards to make him that's what it is.
So funny.
Sorry, I saw your bad review. How about a free meal? People, I swear, there's stuff like that. I'm going to review. I'm going to give you a bad review if you don't hook me up here.
Yeah, well,
anyway.
I don't know. Anything, Joe from the Bridge is saying anything under 4.5, it means you're a problem.
So what does that mean? I don't, you're
I'm
paying.
4.6.
You're a 4.6? You're on the line of being a horrible human being.
I always have a built-in very good tip. And you try to be polite to people.
Always tip. Tip.
I've only had one incident where the Uber driver pulled over and said, "Get out." And it was I wanted to get out too. It was in L.A. and the guy was trying to run the bill.
You get kicked out of an Uber?
Yeah. Well, I had a disagreement with him.
And how do you have a high rating then? That guy should have buried
I
you.
have 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and then 1, 1. I guarantee you. because the guy was being a jackass. He took the wrong way, and he was trying to run the bill up, and I called him out on it.
Well,
so then
good
he said,
for
"Get
you,
out."
because
I said,
that's the way
fine.
it used to be with cabs. All the time,
Right.
like fake.
I
like,
used
and
to
I'm not
call
here.
them out all the time.
All
man.
the
Oh,
time,
really? You
dude.
want to circle? You don't think I'm looking on my phone where we're at and where we're going? You dumbass.
Well, especially
get
when
back on the route.
When they used to pick you up and you were buckled, like when I get in,
yeah.
I'd be downtown. I'm like, all right, I got to get up here. I'm like, dude, what are you? You're getting on the Gardner right now. Where are you going? Like, turn around.
I used to lose my mind.
Stop the meter. No chance. Like, we're not going down this
Dude,
road.
you couldn't trick me. I could have 35 Grey Goose and sodas with lemon, and I get in the cab and be like, oh, $7 in one stoplight? You think that's funny?
Yeah.
Stop it. Get the
No
meter
chance.
right.
I was
you
the
could
other
not
way.
screw with me in a cab. I've seen everything.
I had a night in Vegas. We were at a bar called Lavo, the Venetian. And I got out of I was so bummed. Like the bouncers helped me out into a cab. I got into a cab. The guy, I said, take me to the Venetian. The guy drove around. I was so buckled. $200 bill. The Lavo is at the Venetian.
You're at the Venetian. You got in a cab.
He drove me around and then brought me back to the Venetian.
That's
I don't know.
so
I woke up.
greasy,
I woke up. I was sleeping on a couch in my room, luckily.
Yeah.
But $200 later, the guy drove me around and brought me back to the same. That's my
Isn't
own
that
fault.
gross?
I had 100 drinks that night. I was an
It
idiot.
was the same thing
and that's
happened to
cash.
me. I was out with Justin Williams one night in Carolina, and I said to him, like, I got to go home, buddy. I go home, and I had a little snooze in the cab, and I wake. This is how I wake up. The cab drove back to the place, and Willie woke me up in the cab, and he goes, "Oh, dog, are you okay?" He goes, "The guy it was my turn to go home, and a cab wheels up, and you're in it in the back seat." But thank God he was there, because who the hell knows what would have happened to me if he wasn't.
Yeah, it's dangerous, man. You shut the mill down.
You would have
cab.
been. You would
They
have been
could
in the
toss
pit.
you out on the
Yeah.
side of a highway,
No.
man.
And that's
You-
a cash business, man. That's the
you
thing
would've
is
been
about
in the
Uber.
pit.
You can track everything.
Oh, dude,
right?
that guy didn't care. He heard me snoring, and he's like, well, another round trip back to
Absolutely.
the wherever
Plus,
the
he
establishment
didn't want to be
was.
bothered to carry you to your house, but
Well-
you're lucky you didn't end up in Buffalo Bill's basement with Precious the dog. Like, it could have gone sideways.
stuff.
You never know.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, no, it's interesting because the Uber rating, you can track the map. That's what changes things. Like cabs back in the day, that's a cash business, man. You'd have to have cash. You'd have to know where you're going to keep things in line. I'm actually looking at my rating. It's better than I thought. I got a 4.67. I'm great.
Wow, well, you're fine.
I'm
You're
a
above
really
the-
good citizen. And
For what's I'm 4.6. I'm not bad. You guys
Well,
were
Shay-
acting like I was a
Shay
creep.
just sent this in asking Chat GPT as if, like, what does Chat GPT know? This is another thing. We're getting into AI as if they got all the
Yeah.
answers. What is a bad Uber rating? According
What
to
is
this,
it?
a bad Uber passenger rating is typically considered to be anything below 4.6 stars. Passengers with ratings below this level may find it more difficult to get rides as drivers can see passenger ratings and may choose to avoid picking up lower-rated passengers. So, I don't know. That could be because you've been rude, you've left a mess, you're late, whatever it might be. I mean, I don't take Uber a lot. I very rarely do. But
I take it a lot, but
always
I wonder if you
respectful, always tip, always on time. I'm a talkative guy.
That's
very
kind of rubbing
gregarious
me the
back
wrong
there.
way. I don't like. I got a driver anyway.
You're
I don't need-
4.6. Someone really isn't a fan of you.
Yeah, I like you.
and
Well,
why-
do I
like,
get to see some of the comments on me? Like, is there feedback?
don't
I
know.
want to
That's
have a
what I
look.
would
I'd like
to
to
do.
see that. I'd like
I'd
to
like
see
to go
that.
back and
I
I'd
want
like
to know
go back and-
who gave me a bad rating in the past. Like, it's one thing if it was a late cancellation or something. There's no human contact there, right? It's just,
Right.
okay, you greased me. I was coming to pick you up, and I can understand why that would be disappointing or whatever. And I'm not saying I do that all the time, but it's happened in the past, I'll admit. But the idea of you thinking you're being, hey, how are you? Hey, Bob, what's up? Yeah, let's get going. And then after, he's like, that guy's a D-bag. I don't like him. Two rating.
Yeah, but can you see when they rated you?
No, I don't think you could ever connect that.
See, I'd like to see. You'd like to go back and try and make amends and be like, if the guy that I argued with would be like, "Hey, man, sorry, it was, you should have taken that road. I'm not going to back down on that, but we could have ended in a better way instead of."
Right.
I gave him a 1 as well. I feel like he gave a.
I've never
given
rated.
out a
See,
1.
you
I
rate.
gave him a 1.
You rate. I don't rate,
I've-
man. I do
I've
5-star
never-
ratings all the time. I
I
don't
always-
I'm never gonna. I'm gonna give zeros every time now.
But
If
why
I'm
do
four-
that?
if
'Cause
I'm
then you're going to get
4.6,
labeled. You're
I
going to
don't
get
care.
labeled.
I don't care. You
You-
don't want me, I
I
don't
think
use
that's
them
part of the
anyway.
problem. If you give a bad rating, it's like, oh, this guy No, can't have him. Can't have him as a part of the program.
Exactly.
Anyway. All right. Chris Johnston coming up. Steve Phillips will join us as well. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. I wonder if Dan Hurley looked at the collective Uber ratings of the Lakers.
What an indictment. What an indictment.
Awful.
LeBron's too old. AD's a Band-Aid. He's McDavid's Band-Aid. That's what they should start calling Anthony Davis. McDavid's Band-Aid. That's an indictment, man, when that guy says no. Sorry.
$70 million. Was it $70 million he left on the
$70
table?
million over 6 years. He's at UConn. He's got a great gig. He's making a lot of money there. They've won back-to-back. But still.
Good for him, though. That's a smart man. Why would you want to go down in flames in Los Angeles at the tail end of LeBron? That's a guy that makes a lot of bank at Connecticut. And he said, screw it. I'll run it back.
I agree. And he'll go to the NBA when he wants to, and he'll choose the spot he wants to go to. And I don't blame him at all. The Lakers, they're not that good. They make the play-in every year, and they barely get out of that if they do at all. And LeBron will turn on you if he's not a fan. In
a month.
Yes. That's proven. LeBron, it didn't work. We just saw Darvin Ham. We saw Vogel before that. It was like, nope, not the guy. I'm not feeling it.
Look what happened in Milwaukee this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Antetokounmpo just said, no thanks, not for me.
Adrian Griffin, thanks, but no thanks, man. Not even give. I think they gave him like 20 games maybe. They're like, no, enough. You're out. Not a fan. So, yeah, if you're Dan Hurley, you got college players that want to be there, love playing for you. You're making a lot of money. If you want to go to the NBA at some point, you can do that. But the Lakers, it's not worth it right now. It's not. And but it is an indictment. It's tough because the Lakers are a massive brand. It's LA, and you turn that down. And now the next guy knows he's not the guy, right? If it's Redick or anyone else, it's like, we wanted Dan Hurley. You're a consolation prize. That's tough too. Final hour coming up. Game 2 Cup Final. We'll tee it up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.